Creativity in the Age of COVID with Dr. Judy Blume and Richard Skipper. It's the only program in which therapy and entertainment come together to show everyone not only how to cope in the age of COVID, but how to be creatively productive through it all. And now, Dr. Judy Blume and Richard Skipper.
Hello, Judy.
How are you, Richard?
How are you?
I'm good. Glad to see you, and I'm so sorry I missed the last show.
Well, we missed you. You were truly missed. It's not the same without you. But thank you for being back this week. And it's March.
Yes, we are in March, and it's a year.
Can you believe it?
A year.
Can you believe it? And I think based on everything that's going on right now, and I am being very helpful, that we are now moving towards your dream of this show, and that's creativity after COVID.
Exactly.
So that's going to be happening. I'm so excited about today's show because normally we have a lot of artists from the same genre. And today we are truly across the boards. We have my friend Gary Allen, who is going to be here. We met years ago. I don't know if you know this about me, but there was a time in my life where I performed as Carol Channing.
Right. And
Gary used to perform, among others, Bill Clinton. He was well known for performing as Jay Leno. And we met years ago when I was performing in Las Vegas. We've remained good friends. He has his own radio show that streams live, just as we're doing here down in Florida. We also have your friend, Juri Koll. If you can tell us a little bit about him, because I'm meeting him for the first time today.
Yeah, Juri is quite a character, and I think everybody's going to really enjoy him. He is like Mr. Creative, because he is director of the Venice Institute of Contemporary Art in Southern California. He's also a filmmaker, an independent filmmaker. He's
great photographer.
He's been to Cannes. He's just sort of all over the map creatively. And Juri and I worked together on a show called Art World, looking at the impact of what was going on in any particular country or any particular region, and how that affected the art that was being produced in those areas. So
and
looking at
that
perspective. Uh-huh.
I can't wait to hear all about that. And we also have Gretchen Reinhagen today. And those of my friends in the New York City cabaret scene, you know Gretchen very well. She's won every award that you could possibly win in cabaret. We even have a little clip of her performing that we'll share later. You're going to meet everybody individually, but we're going to start by bringing on my friend Gary Allen. So Dr. Blume, I'd like you to meet Gary. And here you are.
Hi, Gary.
Who is the show? Richard Skipper? Do I know Richard Skipper? Oh, hi.
Yes.
Oh, hi. I'm talking to anyway. Hey, Dr. Bloom, Richard Skipper. How are you, my man?
I'm so glad that you're here today. As
Thank
you can see, the humor abounds today.
Yeah.
So, Gary, I want to ask you how you're doing really in the midst of this crazy world that we're finding ourselves in. Hopefully that we're going to get back to some semblance of normalcy very, very soon. But what, beyond the obvious things, what is the biggest impact that the last 12 months have really made on your life?
I would think the fact that it's given me the opportunity to launch the show that I do on Fridays, as well as other projects that I've been allowed to get involved in. As a talk show host, I spend a lot of time at home anyway, reading, keeping up on things. The thing that has been an impact on me negatively is not getting out and doing the things that I would normally like to do. Now, I'm not a beach person, even though I live in Florida. But, it's also prevented me from moving home to Miami, because Miami is has had a huge problem over this last year with COVID. And I didn't want to go down there. And it's also stifled my income, as it has for millions of performers. And whether you're a talk show host or whether you're on Broadway or whatever, it has brought a halt to a lot of our lives. And I'm certainly not any different than anyone else in that it's kind of cut my economic situation in half. And so it's been it's been rough, and it's also been tough. Now, I did lose a family member to COVID.
I'm sorry.
Well, I didn't really know her. She was on my sister-in-law's side, but we did lose her. And I did lose my brother, Michael, who was a member of the Baltimore Colts for 14 years. And the only people to go to his funeral, and he was only over in Tampa when he passed. I couldn't get over there, and they would only let my nephew and his wife take the body back to Baltimore, and it took a week to get Delta to fly them back.
Wow.
So it's had an impact,
Yeah.
but it hasn't stifled me in any way, because I knew, and I still know, that eventually we're going to come out of this. As I've asked a lot of my guests on my show, and you and I will talk about this tomorrow. Richard will be on with me tomorrow. What changes will it make in our lives? Things that we used to do that maybe we aren't going to do anymore. What have we found new with streaming and other ways of communicating that maybe we won't do what we did before? But I have a feeling we're going to bust out for a while and just get back to the roaring 20s kind of a thing when everything is lifted. That's just my opinion.
I hope so. And Dr. Bloom, I have a question for you based on what he just said. A lot of people, I was reading an article earlier today referring to the way that we're living our lives now as the new normal. And if you could just expound upon that for a few moments, as far as what people think this new normal may or may not be, and how we get through this if our expectations are too high.
Yeah, well, if our expectations are too high, and also there's going to be this re-entry period, right, where we're all going to have to get used to being around lots of other people again, and that's going to be a little scary for a lot of people, especially anybody who has any kind of a social anxiety disorder or anything like that. It's going to be a very difficult process. And after all these months and months and months of isolating, suddenly being around crowds is going to feel very not particularly safe, okay, initially. So
well, I mean, but if I can just interrupt for a moment, a lot of places, and we're hearing now with what's going on in Texas, and thank God that the governor of Mississippi today said not so fast, we're going to wait, and she has given a goal date that they're moving towards, but I'm hearing that so many people, some businesses, because of this new mandate being lifted in Texas, they want to have those restrictions. And yet if somebody comes in who says, well, the governor says I don't have to, how are we all going to be dealing with this?
Yeah, it's going to cause a lot of conflicts. It is. And we've seen that in Florida, where I am now. We've seen that down here, too, in the Naples area, where there have been certain stores that have tried to go against the mask mandates. And, it's caused a lot of conflict within the community when people do that. So you are going to see that. You're going to see arguments. You're going to see people, as I said, just being not comfortable going out now, even if they're allowed to be out without a mask. They may still choose to wear a mask, and certainly we're being urged to continue to wear masks for now. But there will be a lot of apprehension, I think, among a lot of people as they put their toes back in the water.
Do you think? Can I interject here real quick? Do you think that the misinformation that we got for about a year from where has not helped matters any? Because let's face it, the Texas governor, like our governor, Dr. Bloom, is a GOPer, and he's never listened to any of that and this QAnon nonsense and all this other stuff. By the way, what I think is going on in Texas, Richard and Dr. Bloom, is a cover up for what happened with the snow and the freezing and the electricity going crazy and crews going to Mexico. But do you think the misinformation that people have out there, oh, COVID, it's nothing. Oh, it's the president said it's not going to be anything. It's not going to touch us. Oh, and the misinformation in general that came out of the White House. Do you think that is aiding and abetting the people who in Texas and other places, as soon as the mask thing is lifted, we see it here in Florida. Wow, they're out partying. It's the roaring 20s again.
Right. Absolutely. I think that, the lack of federal response initially has just caused chaos in terms of how people have dealt with the reality of COVID.
Yeah.
With so many people in denial about just how serious it really is and how, easily spread it really is, especially because a lot of younger people have been asymptomatic, and it causes chaos.
Mhm.
And, I think the current administration is trying to get a handle on that, and warn people that, we need to get through the vaccination process first. It's coming. Slow down. It's sort of
I'm getting mine. I'm getting mine tomorrow. I'm getting mine tomorrow.
Great.
I want to bring Juri on right now. Hello, Juri.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. We barely scratched the surface with all that you do. You're also a filmmaker, and I want to ask what your calendar looked like this time last year before all of the restrictions started being put in place.
Oh, that's a really interesting question. I was specifically focused on an exhibition about one of my mentors. Her name is Gloria Harris. I was in the middle of, I had opened my gallery on February 8th, and I closed it on March 8th because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And on a Sunday, we had a collectors group in the gallery, and everybody had to stand at social distancing from each other and touch elbows. And we knew it was over. And so I was specifically focused on her work and getting the word out there. It was her first solo show since 1983. This was a 50-year retrospective of one person who taught me about the art world, Gloria Harris.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was specifically focused on her work. And then what was I going to do for the next gallery show? And I was devastated, and so was she. And all the artists that I had scheduled for the next year and a half, 2 years, I had to begin to make phone calls to them.
Mm-hmm. Well, we first started hearing about COVID on the West Coast here in New York. When did you first hear about COVID, and how severe did it feel to you at the very beginning, or did you feel that these would be isolated cases and we would move on? What was your overall feeling about everything?
We all knew it was going to be really bad. We all knew that it was very, very serious.
Mm-hmm.
And we all were, we knew we had to go into lockdown, and we didn't know how long it would be. And it was devastating. And I lost everything. I had invested everything I had into the gallery plus other people's money, and it was gone. And all the artists who had created all their work for shows that we had planned for them and everything. And I was starting to sell off my collection of art to anybody who would buy it for whatever I could get it for, just to pay the rent.
Mm.
And that was about a 3-week period where I was just, to be perfectly honest, scared shitless, to be honest. And then I realized that it's life, and that you just have to embrace it and figure out what to do to survive.
Mm-hmm.
That's what artists are good at.
That's right.
That's what performers are good at. The show must go on, as they say, which is actually not anything anybody ever really said, but it's something we carry with us. You must continue.
Well,
and that's what creativity allows us to do.
Speaking of continuing, how long did you feel, for lack of a better term, stuck before you started moving forward again and starting to pull yourself back together in the midst of everything?
Well, I was very fortunate because I have skills that I've learned over the years, and one of them is being able to communicate in multiple mediums. So I was able to have long phone conversations with friends that helped.
Mm-hmm.
I started doing Zoom shows. So I started using Zoom as a broadcast medium, and started doing Art World. The show that Judi and I had envisioned became a reality, even in tiny little boxes with your show looks great with your interstitials and your graphics ahead of time and all that stuff. We didn't have that when Zoom was first started. We didn't know how to do it yet. The technology is very clunky. But at the very least, people can talk to each other and listen to each other and stuff. And so for all of its faults, it became a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and that was good. And, you know, I haven't really been so pleased with using the internet to show art. A lot of the, like Christie's and Sotheby's and a lot of the big galleries have embraced that because they don't have art fairs and stuff. But that to me hasn't been valuable. I think the moving picture, the key that ties us together as a culture.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always been near and dear to my heart, so I just had to turn to that.
Mm-hmm. Anything you want to say, Dr. Bloom, before I bring on Gretchen?
Yeah, well, you know, Juri, I know that, you know, you're somebody who is comfortable in all different modalities. So I'm wondering did you ramp up any of your other interests? Did you, you know, start doing more writing, or, you know, doing other things that are, you're going to hold up
I started a journal.
Oh, journal.
I hadn't done a journal since I would say the late 90s.
Wow, that's great.
Which was very, I mean, I make lists every day and stuff, but I hadn't written extensive expository, like trying to work things out, because I didn't feel like I had anybody to talk to about the things that were bothering me, and I didn't want to trouble others with those issues. And so I used the journal as a way to just get out my frustrations about being alone, or get out, you know, write about things that were bothering me before I went to bed so that I could sleep.
Yeah, it's something I tell my clients to do all the time, is to journal before bed and just dump it all there, leave it next to your bed. And then if you start thinking about it during the middle of the night, you can remind yourself, I already thought about it. It's right next to my bed.
And the flip side of that, Julia Cameron, who wrote The Artist Way, she has in her book the Morning Pages,
right,
which is how I begin every day. I'm doing the same thing, writing my thoughts down, what I'm feeling, what I was dreaming about the night before, if I was lucky enough to fall asleep, and, you know, just everything that's going on through my mind. I'm going to bring Gretchen on, but before I do, I'm just going to give you all a glimpse of a sampling of her work, and then we'll have her on the other side.
The days feel long. I'm worn to the bone. I don't know why, because I haven't left my home. It's my new normal. I'm not wearing any pants. What are you doing today? Well, here is what I have to say. I'm doing the same damn thing that I did yesterday. You like that? I just read that. I thought you'd like that. Deborah just said I'm very talented, so there you have it. Thank you.
Because I need to find out, you know, I need to find like other ways to make money, so I figured I should learn this. So I Googled it to learn how to play, and I'm totally awesome at this. I've learned this much so far. But anyway, I went ahead, you know, and I wrote a song for you guys. Now, this is for all of you, because I love you. This is a song I wrote for you in the key of G's. It's the only chord that I can play on my guitar, you see. Hey, this time I'll be lucky. Maybe this time he'll stay. I have bad dry cleaning karma. That is how that song came to be. It's true. I have actually gone through every dry cleaner in my neighborhood, and I finally ended up back with the one I started with, because I had run the entire list through. I don't quite know what it is that is so difficult, or why I can't quite wrap my head around certain things. Like, okay, Did you ever think that when you took your clothes to the dry cleaners, you would need to specify that you wanted them dry cleaned? I find this misleading. For me, it is right up there with midnight mass at 10 p.m. The cat's 6 feet away.
Gretchen Reinhagen, I love you. I do want to say to everyone, I mean, Gretchen is an amazing entertainer. She is a teacher. She's a director. And Gretchen, I also want to point out, is when all the cabarets shut down in New York, Gretchen, if I'm not mistaken, was one of the first ones to start doing shows from her living room in her apartment on Sunday nights.
Yep.
And she was very honest. She was very brutal. Juri, you bring up a point earlier.
Oh, I was feeling Yuri's pain when he made that comment. The technology.
I don't know anything about the technical end of this business or anything, but I'm just going to put it out there and hopefully you'll watch. And we did.
That was it. That was it. And I would say, you know, to my friends, like my very good friend Marty Millett and her husband Michael Guerin started about a month or so after me started doing their shows. And Marty's like, I only did it because of what you taught me with. I would say I made as many mistakes as I could so that I could help my friends learn how to do these shows online. Mm-hmm. Anything that could go wrong live went wrong for me. And we just had fun with it. You know, we would say up front, this is what it is. Oh, let's try this week and see what happens. And we do it. And it was a lot of fun, but it was amazing, you know, as you know, especially doing these shows so regularly, the work that, you know, that you put into doing. I would try to keep my show to like 30, 40 minutes. And it was like insane amount of work, but it kept me going. It was such a labor of love.
Well, Gretchen, I want to ask you, what is the biggest impact that this past year has had on you beyond the obvious that has affected all of us? But personally, what's the biggest impact that this has had on you?
It's hard to narrow it down. Probably one of the biggest, like the most difficult thing about this for me has been, I feel like I've lost a number of people that were either friends or people I knew. And it was odd because it wasn't always COVID related. And yet, you know, I lost a dear friend of mine from my Palm Spring days, who was my voice teacher and mentor. And she passed from cancer. And then a week later, I lost a friend, you know, in his 50s to COVID. It was kind of insane. And I felt like the universe was just this sort of upside down thing, you know. And that's kind of one of the hardest pieces of it has been for me, along with all the isolation. In the early days, for sure, it was the isolation. And my own therapist, Dr. Bloom, was out on maternity leave as of February 28th last year. And I really thought she was trying to kill me with that. And yeah, I had a lot to say to her when she came back. I didn't care about that damn baby.
You took it very personally, right?
I took it so personally. I was like, who is this baby? And what the hell? You know? But yeah, the isolation, you know, I was such an extrovert and being away from it. I had a show that was just about to open. I had lots of, you know, I came off a year where I had been booked a lot and was working a lot. And we'd had the Bistro Awards, which was, you know, quite a big night, like a week before the city shut down. And then all of a sudden, boom. And I couldn't, you know, I have friends that I would see like every day, every other day, you know. Tracy Stark, who Richard knows, plays piano for me a lot. She and I saw each other all the time. And then when we finally were able to meet again, you know, later in the year, it was like the most time since we'd seen each other physically. It was just crazy, you know, it was crazy. The challenge.
Anything you want to add to Dr. Bloom? And then I've got questions that I'd like to ask everyone.
Yeah, no, go ahead with the questions. I think because Gretchen, what you're describing, I think, is sort of the universal experience that everybody has had, which is just the challenges and this kind of universal grief reaction that we've all.
Can I say something that Gretchen
Absolutely.
was talking about? Gretchen, when you first got started doing the Zoom stuff, don't let it bother. I've been in radio when I was in Miami and other places for about 20 years, and I interned and eventually worked for Larry King. And I learned from him that live radio is what people want to hear, the bumps, the blemishes, the
I actually agree. I wasn't really all that bothered by it. I would kind of make a joke about it.
The funniest times I've ever had on stage as an actor is when I made a mistake.
Yes.
And people would react, and I would turn around sometimes and go, well, what did you expect? The ticket's not that expensive.
Absolutely.
Well, I told you all that before the show started. I was interviewing someone the other day, and I had done my research. I had spent a lot of time researching her, only to find out that she had another person with the same name, and I researched the completely wrong person, which took my show in a completely different direction.
But I will also give you this example. I interviewed a young woman who's famous, and she's the voice of the Academy Awards and other places.
Oh, wow.
And she called me up after doing a live show with me, my late night show that I used to do, The Express, and called me up and said, Gary, can we edit out the breathing and the other things and some of the mistakes? And I said, honey, it's live radio. That's what it's all about. And she went, oh, but I'm worried. I'm self-conscious about my breathing and stuff. I said, you started out in radio before me.
Yeah.
Don't you know live radio? You make mistakes. Sometimes you push for the cart machine and the music goes blah, 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 blah.
Right.
We'll be right back. So, I think the American people appreciate the blemishes being out there. That's why I've always hated reality TV, because it isn't really reality. It's all staged.
Sure. And I, when I first started, like, I knew I wanted to do some Facebook Live things. And what I would do is I would just randomly and I remember the first time, like, holding my phone with the live button, and it like took me 5 minutes to press it, because I was terrified. So I didn't even know what I was going to say or who was going to watch or what they were going to, respond with. And I would go on and I would just be like, hey, it's been a day. How are you? And I would do things like what are you doing today? That was like a 3-minute Facebook Live thing I did one day.
It probably helped people out there.
It did.
Because of this.
People would start to kind of tune in and watch for them because you didn't know when they were hit. And they'd be like 5-minute.
That was
5-minute shows.
A lot of people were doing that at that time, because I think everybody was we are social animals.
Yeah.
And I think that all of us were grasping or trying to reach out for anything that we could go on. I want to talk about the flip side of all this, because with all of the interviews that I've done this year, one of the things that I have heard over and over and over again from a lot of people is, even though this is a terrible time that we're going through, some of them actually feel guilty because they're thriving artistically with what they're trying what they are accomplishing and creating. And I'll start with you, Gary, with the work that you've been doing. Are there areas of your life that you feel, think back a year ago, that you've actually learned about yourself this year? What are the positives that have come out of this past year for you?
Well, this also goes back, Richard, to where you and I met all those years ago in Las Vegas, when I was performing in Las Vegas, doing stand-up and everything else. This time, because I've also been collecting unemployment for the state of Florida, which Judi knows the difficulties we've been going through, thanks to our great governor. Anyway, back on track. It's allowed me the opportunities of getting connected with the people in Miami that I needed to get connected to, that when I get back, now I have, and boy, I'm aging myself here. Now I have a Rolodex full of people. And I've also reacquainted myself with people that I knew in Miami that are saying, oh my God, when are you coming home? We can't wait for you to come home. There's opportunities down there for me. So it's allowed me the opportunity to do the show that I do on Fridays. And it's also allowing me to do, getting back doing other things that I've wanted to do. And it's given me a chance to breathe a little bit and to look at myself and go, okay, you don't like this about yourself. Let's change that. My hair, number one. How many years, Richard, did I wear my hair back like Jay Leno? Because Jay, and I've known Jay since I was 9 years old. Now I have it like this. I mean, I'm 68 years old. I'm not a kid. Okay. But I've also realized that I'm at 68. I got a long way to go. And I am so eager to get back home because the C News Network, while I'm not on there at the moment, I'm going to be back on Monday through Friday, weekdays. It's allowed me to connect back with people.
That's great.
It's allowed me to reach out and have Richard, like you will be tomorrow on the show, and Adrian Paul and Jeffrey Mark and other people. It's allowed me to branch out a little bit of the things that I've wanted to do. So I'm grateful for that. I'm very grateful, and it's also been a calming situation for me because I'm a veteran and I served in Southeast Asia, and unless they're shooting at you, I don't get really too badly stressed out. But I've allowed myself to breathe a little bit. That's all. I've just allowed myself to breathe and think about what is it I want to do when I get home. Where do I want to focus?
Well, one of the things, one of the things that I really enjoyed about what you said, Gretchen, is how much joy you've gotten out of doing things live. Which puts you in a situation where you must, accept your everything about yourself when you do it. And so I started doing these. I remember when I'm a fan. I'm a student of media and fan of everything. So I started doing this thing called Live at 5, and so I would get on my Facebook, and so that nobody would see me, I turned the camera away and I would film my painting table and my paintings in process.
Okay.
And I would turn a certain bit of music on and I would talk about the politics or something that was bothering me, or I would talk about the technique of the painting and I'd say, this is Live at 5, but actually it's 2:45 and here we go. And then I would end the show with a view from my balcony and say, everybody take care of each other now. And, and sometimes it might be late at night. Sometimes it might be in the morning when I would be painting, and I would be in various states of emotion doing them because they were cathartic for me. Mm-hmm. So a couple people said to me, there was one post that I was particularly enthusiastic about, and somebody made a comment on it. And I thought, should I take that down? And that, is that going to hurt me? And I thought, you did that because you wanted to get that out and you're a public person, so go ahead. And so what that was a bit of catharsis.
Yeah.
Be able to expose my weaknesses.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, my strengths, hopefully. Right. And then the other thing is when you're talking about doing creative things and how you feel, about what the opportunities that COVID has given you, I've been able to paint more and create more of my personal body of work than I have in years because of this. Because I've been isolated, I've been able to focus, and my body of work is a new series of paintings called the Handshake Series that started 2 years ago. But this new iteration is much more, it's deeper and more emotional, and it's like, I'm a spiritual person, but I don't believe in a particular religion. So I believe, so these are kind of like my church. And that's what COVID has given me, is the ability to understand my weaknesses and the things that I need to fix, whether it's in my paintings or whether it's in my belief in others or myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, I want to ask, thank you, Juri, for sharing that with us. I want to ask any of you, and I'll start with you, Gretchen. When you started doing your live performances, were there times, because I think that when you first started, that you had a very structured way of doing it, that Sunday nights at a specific time,
right,
you were going to do this. And of course, we're all going through various things right now.
Right.
Were there ever times that you felt I really don't want to do this tonight, but you felt obligated for your fans to do that. And if you can
every Friday or every Sunday around 3:30 was when I felt that I really don't want to do this tonight. Yeah, because it's scary and it's, you know, it's a lot of work. But I cut you off.
And I was going to say, what motivated you to go on?
Yeah, I mean, exactly what you said. I felt like I had made a commitment, and I had made a commitment to myself, and I really wanted to push myself to keep performing because, you know, I had a day job. I have a day job. I'm at my day job. Which has been another scary part of this whole thing because we're an essential business. We've been back in the office for quite some time now. So there was that, and I was exhausted. You know, it was weird. I was weirdly busier than ever. Like, there's no separation between when you're at home, between, you know, work and your personal life, and then you turn around and you'd have one day off, and then it was like, oh God, I committed to doing a show tonight. What am I even going to do? And the scariest parts of it for me were, you know, do I have new material? Can I use last week's material again? And how do I keep it fresh? And what if this doesn't go well? So there were a lot of sort of, and also I was producing it by myself. I mean, I've been a solo performer for a long time, but I usually have somebody helping me out, you know, and it was, which I did. I had my wife, thank God for my wife, Deborah, who was home with me, because, you know, I was like the one-man band. I had my piano, I had my tracks, I had a camera up, I had something else, and, you know, and she was in the background with whatever cue card and, you know, providing the laugh track and, you know.
Can I ask a question of Gretchen, please?
Yeah.
Gretchen and Dr. Bloom, this is something right up your alley as well. What do you think? You were home with your wife, and other couples are home with their family members for a large part of this. I mean, now we're starting to kind of get back to it. I've jokingly said this on the air. Do you think there's going to be a lot of separations, a lot of divorces, or do you think this has brought people back? I mean, are you and Deborah closer together now than you were before?
We actually are. I was worried.
Yes, because you find out the little things about each other.
Can I speak, Gretchen, for a moment? Gretchen and Deborah have a lovely apartment, but it's not a huge apartment. And there's not a lot of space for them to really get away from each other. So,
but there's more than the average, you know, Manhattan, because we're all the way up. So
that's right.
We're one of the luckier ones that, you know, she can close the door to. She does have her own. She's a jewelry designer. She does have a space that she can close the door and lock me out, except that I would then come in with my laptop and decide that was where I was working from for the day. But yes, the truth is it ended up being a really wonderful thing for our marriage. And Richard, you had asked about sort of the guilty feelings that have come along with all of this, and, you know, the survivor's guilt, as it were, on various levels. And that was kind of part of it for me. I felt guilty about loving being home with my wife. Yeah.
What do you think, Dr. Bloom? Do you think we're going to go through a lot of divorces and stuff?
Yeah, Gary, what I've seen is sort of twofold. It's very black and white in that sense, where people either, you know, have become really much more appreciative of their significant others and really, you know, closer to them. And it's, you know, all of a sudden they're remembering why they are with this person and real time with them, right?
Yeah.
Or it's just the opposite. They're now spending all this time with this person. And they're going, what the hell am I doing here? I have one couple, for instance, who had a long distance relationship for the last couple of years, and that worked fine for them. They'd go back and forth, you know, she's in San Francisco, he's in New Mexico, and they just simply went back and forth as, you know, did their work, came together, worked great for them. When COVID hit, she moved in with him in New Mexico, and it was a disaster.
I'm sorry to laugh. Please forgive me.
Sorry.
Watching.
Horrible.
Watching.
And now she's trying to figure out what she wants, if she wants to stay married or not.
Well,
Sure.
So
she's lucky she has you, doctor.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in a situation where my dad was an airline pilot and my mom was an interior designer down in Miami Beach. And I said to my dad, because my mother died before he did, and I said to him one day, I said, Dad, what was the reasons for the longevity? Because you two were both born the same day in January, and you were two like bulls in a china factory. He says, son, I was an airline pilot. I wasn't around much. If I had been, your mother would have murdered me a long time ago. Because my father was so inept, he couldn't he couldn't use a screwdriver. I said to him one day, I said, you fly an L-1011 for Eastern Airlines. How in the name of God, what if something goes wrong? He says, I call a mechanic. I said, at 35,000 feet.
Well, earlier this week, I interviewed Melanie Shardoff, great actress.
Oh, yes.
Her parents separated when they divorced after 48 years of marriage. And she said, why now? And her mom said, I've just had enough. So they move on. Juri, I want to ask you, I mean, I'm reading a great book now called Real Artists Don't Starve about Jeff Goins. Great book. And I'm reading this chapter now about collaboration. And a lot of us, like Gretchen Reinhagen, she does solo work, but it's never really solo because there's the musical directors, there's the musicians, there are the lighting people, everything. And in your line of work, different from the rest of us, and I'm talking specifically about the artwork, and I'm assuming that that's some of your great work behind you.
That is my painting, yeah.
No, I love that. I'm looking at some of your other work as well. That sometimes is a solitary profession as far as the creativity is concerned. But in terms, once the creativity is ready to go to the next level, it's always about collaboration. What are the difficult things that you're dealing with right now as far as the collaboration is concerned and not being able to collaborate on a level that you were able to do so before?
One of the hardest parts about being an artist is if you're good at it, you want to let the painting speak for itself. And the only way the painting can speak for itself is if somebody sees it in person. There's a tactile sense of understanding that is achieved when you see the artist's hand. Now, that's different than a photograph. That's different than an illustration that work well digitally. So there's varying degrees of this issue. But one of the things that's been interesting is how people have adapted to the process. And I'll switch this up a little bit to the process of selling a piece of work, because ultimately when I make a piece of work, if it stays in my studio hidden until I'm dead, that's one thing. But if I want people to see it, then I require a whole host of other people to help it be seen, which involves galleries and museums and curators and art advisors and the wall space and then the buyer. So there's all kinds of different focuses on that. And one of the things that we've found in the art business as sellers is that it's really challenging to get folks who weren't raised with their iPhones or their Androids and weren't taught to do live shows every morning and every afternoon and every 3 minutes, how to get used to the idea of trusting that. Right. And so the Christie's and Sotheby's and all the major galleries have dived into this thing that's so new to them, which is the kids have been doing it forever. And learning how to sell art that way. And we had a client who was looking at a piece of art that was painted in 1950 by an artist who was underappreciated in her lifetime, although she did museum shows, Lily Fenichel, whose estate I manage. There's a collector in Florida who owns a museum in Florida, a very prestigious one. There's a piece of art in New Mexico. The dealer is in Palm Springs. I'm in Venice. The person who's making final decisions is in London. And we did a videotape of the artwork and photographs of it and additional work. And it took us about 6 months, but we sold this piece for 4 times the value that the work had ever been sold for in her lifetime. and the estate value went high. And the collector in France was pleased. The Denver Art Museum was happy because it came out of their book. We're pleased because it helped us continue our work. And there was this huge rush when the sale went through, because we had figured out a way to master our differences and our distances by using technology in a way that none of us would have ever predicted 3 months before.
Yeah.
I love what you just said, mastering our distances.
Yeah.
I think that there's a book title there for somebody. So
For Juri.
It just
But
came
I
up
also,
off the top of my
I
head.
also
So
think, I
anybody
also
can
think,
use it if they want.
I also think that that's what's going to happen when we do get back to relative norm, whatever that may be for whoever you are, is that we'll be doing more of this.
Right.
And unfortunately, now I got to tell you something, Gretchen. I love the performers in New York for what they have been doing. The 7 o'clock thing. I don't know if they still, probably not because of the cold weather, but also just the Broadway performers getting out on their balconies and singing and doing things, and that's so beautiful, because through the arts comes who you are. You know, they say that the eyes are the windows of the soul. Well, I think the arts and the music are the rhythms upon which we move.
I wouldn't have gotten through these past 12 months without my music, which is, you know, ironically, I complain all the time. I'm too tired. I'm too busy. I need my day job now more than ever. So, you know, I'm going to stop making music, or I'm going to stop directing. I'm going to stop teaching. But at the end of the day, you know, I did a lot of writing this year, which was great. But I look back, and every one of these musical and teaching experiences that I've had, because I teach a class weekly on Zoom, and that was an experience as well. You know, and we're all technology challenged, and it has been mostly hilarious. There were many classes that I just didn't even charge for, because they, you know, they were just too funny, and we accomplished nothing with the technology. But it's what's gotten me through. And you made a comment, Juri, when you were talking about connecting with each other over distances. There was a platform that my sister's a music manager in the Palm Springs area, and she found this concert platform on Facebook that she wanted me to join. And so I did. And it's, you know, thousands and thousands of followers, and you can just go on the page and go live anytime you want. So it's one thing for me going live with, you know, I have a fair amount of friends and followers, but, you know, I've got my regular 50 or so people that I have socialized with across the community or whatever. You know who's watching. Now, all of a sudden, you don't know who's watching. And I found that rather terrifying, to be on this big platform. But at the same time, the song that I wrote, the New Normal song that I wrote that was at the top of my track that Richard played, is a comedy song. And, you know, I played it on one of these shows, and I had somebody in the Netherlands, you know, texting or commenting and saying, that's exactly how I'm feeling right now. And I'm so grateful. And it just, you know, for all of the scariness of it, and the critics being true critics, you know, out there in the big wide world, suddenly I was connecting with somebody, you know, on the other side of the world, and they were relating. They were going through the same thing I was going through, and there was something very powerful about that.
Yeah, it is powerful, and not knowing how you're being accepted or looked at is powerful, because it leaves you with one thing: your own trueness to yourself.
Yeah.
And any performer knows that when you get on stage and you get nervous, your only thing that you have to remember is who you are.
Right. Tell the truth.
And that's what gets you through.
Right.
Gretchen, I want to ask you, it was announced yesterday that our cabaret rooms are going to start opening again.
Oh, I missed that. That's okay.
Well, they're going to be opening at 35%.
Oh, right. Yes, I did see
Yeah.
the 35% rule. Yeah.
We still have a long way to go. Are you
Sure.
comfortable going back into the cabaret rooms and performing now, or what do you think your process will be coming back?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I mean, it's weird. It's this kind of odd dichotomy because I am going out every day because I have to. And at the same time, I've got, earlier on when I was feeling somewhat safe in the summer, I met a friend, from a distance table with a mask on for like a cocktail outside on the street kind of thing. And that was scary, but, at the same time, it was like something I needed. But then I found myself feeling a little too complacent because I was going out all the time. So then we kind of buckled down more and I got more nervous about it. And now I'm like, I feel like until Deborah and I are both fully vaccinated, I don't want to, I have to come out. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I've maxed out on the amount of exposure I want to bring into my home every night. So I'm not going and seeing people. I'm just coming to work and going home. And then the other side of that is, and I think, Dr. Bloom, maybe you've had people that are going through this. I'm somebody who was out every night, and I'm finding myself really wanting to be home and pushing back against that going out to work. And when I can do, a StreamYard show, and I'm doing one with my students this Sunday, and I can do it from my living room, I'm loving that. So it's a mixed bag for me now. I did do a private party recently, very small crowd, very far distanced. And we took this gig as sort of an experimental kind of thing. And it was fun, but it was nerve-wracking. I don't know how I feel yet.
And Gretchen, what you're talking about is exactly what I was talking to Richard about at the very top of the show, about reentry.
Yeah.
That a lot of people are going to be struggling with what that feels like now, because it feels very foreign to us. And we've gotten used to not being around a lot of people. And there is going to be kind of a re-entry process that's going to happen. The fact that places are opening with 35% capacity, they may only attract 35%.
That's true. Okay? If they're lucky.
Right, if you're lucky.
The funny thing is,
4 people is a decent sized audience for me.
But I think what Australia is doing is a great example of what the theater is going to have to do. Where they've got the robots taking the temperature now. Have you read about?
No. Okay.
They also have they're doing contact tracing for everybody who walks into the theater, and they're also having very liberal cancellation policies. If you come to the theater and you're not feeling well, or you call them and just say I'm not going to be there, no problem. Okay.
Wow.
They'll change the ticket. Or refund it. So I think that our theater community is also going to have to do
that would be great. I wonder how costly that is.
Right.
Well, here's a
part of it. In the film business, it costs 15 to 25% on top of your production costs to handle what we're dealing with right now.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Bloom, here's a question for you. I wonder what it's going to be like for single people. Well, through this, dating wise, because let's face it, we like to be with someone.
Yeah, we are social animals.
At least I do. The Greek boy in me says, yeah.
It has been.
I mean, we all want to be loved and cared for and stuff. So I wonder what that's going to be like.
Yeah.
Throughout the world. Are people going to feel awkward? I mean, let's face it, I never had great pickup lines anyway, so I mean, it really doesn't really matter. But
have you been vaccinated?
Yeah,
maybe we're going to come out with these vaccine passports.
That's the opening night right there.
I'm getting, I'm getting vaccinated tomorrow, so
they're going to have to make vaccination paperwork the size of a driver's license.
Yeah. Well, here I am. Yeah, vaccinated this date. Yeah, everything's
good. They're talking about that though in Europe, right? There was a story about that on the news the other day. Yeah.
In Estonia, they're doing where my father was born in Estonia. They're starting this gets involved in personal, security issues and privacy and all kinds of stuff. But they're trying to do that there. Yeah.
I mean, there are tons of people that I've run across. There's a waitress where I go. There's a little luncheonette that I go and have breakfast with some friends. And she says, I will not get vaccinated. I was vaccinated as a child with everything I'm going to do. And I am not going to get vaccinated. But she's also a QAnon person. So, okay.
Well, that's a whole different show.
Yeah.
I can't believe this, but we are at the end of our show.
What? We are done? We cannot be done here. No, we cannot. No.
No, but I want to thank Gary Allen and Juri Koll and Gretchen Reinhagen and, of course, Dr. Bloom. I always enjoy doing these with you. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a new show, so stay tuned for the information on that.
And you and I will be on tomorrow.
And we'll be on tomorrow. But I want to, I also always end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. Go to your Facebook friends list. And the fourth name that pops up, reach out to that person, not with a text message, not with an email, not with a private message, a phone call. Pick up the phone, call them, and see how they're doing. As our dear friend David Friedman always says, we're all in this together, but we're not in the same boat. And you never know what somebody else is going through.
Right.
So please, please, please reach out, especially now. We've got so much to look forward to, but there's still a lot of fear that's still there. Now, before we end, I'm going to give each of you a chance to have the final word. And you can talk about anything that we've talked about that you want to build upon, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish we had, or just any message that you want to put out to anyone who's watching now. And for God's sake, keep the art flowing. Do everything you can to keep our stages alive, our galleries open. If you can make a contribution anywhere, by all, please do so. Gary, I'm going to turn it over to you for a moment.
All I can say is just listen to the advice. This COVID is something we're learning about new every day. There's a new wrinkle. There's a new vaccine coming out. It's mutating itself into something different as flu does every year. Just use your common sense and realize these vaccines are being produced for a reason. Don't delay doing it because you could put your family in danger. You could put yourself in danger, your friends in danger. Wear a mask. I know that sounds silly, but wear a mask. Yes, it's uncomfortable, but above everything else, I'm a person of faith. Just take care of yourself and take care of each other and trust in God because He's there for all of us all the time. All the time.
Thank you. Juri?
I would say the most important thing is to take care of your neighbors, get to know the people who live nearby you, be safe about doing it, be locally focused, and reach out to somebody who's far away from you who you haven't talked to in a while. Take Richard's advice and be safe. Protect yourself so that you can protect others and create. And I would recommend one thing that really helps me is read a book order a book if you can find one or go get one, or read a book you haven't read or that have been meaning to read in a long time and just read. Just read something and just sit down. Don't look at the TV. Don't look at anything else. Just read something and see what happens. I think you'll find that it'll help your mellow level a little bit.
Exactly. Thank you for that. Gretchen?
Kindness is the big one for me. We're all going through so much, and you never know what the person next to you, if you're out of your home and on the subway, for those of us who have to do it, or on the sidewalk, you don't know why that person is might be angry or annoyed or might be sad, or maybe you don't know. We don't know what's going through. And there's so many different opinions swirling around, and so many of them valid, just different. We're all so different. We all have different understandings of what's happening. And there's so much information coming at us all the time about what is correct. And the only thing I've or what is true and fact about this whole pandemic. And the only thing I've learned is that every day it's a little bit different than I thought it was yesterday in terms of even the science, you know. Kindness, we need that from each other. We need that understanding from each other. You know, and it's people are, you know, it's okay if you have a different view from me. That doesn't mean I can't be kind. And that's the thing I'm trying to remind myself of.
Amen. Thank you for that. Dr. Bloom.
And that kindness, Gretchen, extends to kindness towards self, right?
Yes.
As well.
That's a hard one.
That's a hard one. And I think that's something that we also have to really hold on to.
Yeah.
Holding on to that work-life balance, if you will. For a lot of people, we, you know, as I said, we've learned just how valuable the people in our lives really are. And it's kind of nice to not have to be going all the time.
Right.
So, you know, hold on to some of that as we do re-enter back into the world and take the baby steps to get there.
Yeah.
And, you know, following Richard's advice, I reached out to Juri. So,
Oh, and Juri, what a great thrill it is to meet you.
Yes.
How
Lucky for us.
Gretchen and Gary. It's a pleasure to meet all three of you.
Truly. Pleasure.
Then my
pleasure.
honor to be on the show. Thank you.
great to meet
Thank
you.
you. Everybody, make it a better tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye.
God bless.
All.